Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and a few days ago I just got back from a little beach vacation. I went with my family since this probably was like the safest vacation we could take because we were still in state. We were just another part of the state, the beach area, the coast, I guess. And I had not seen my sister, and I had not met my little niece, baby girl Charlie, as I decided to call her. And I hadn't seen, her brothers, so my sister decided, and my sister and brother-in-law decided to get a beach house, and because it saved us because we didn't, all we did was go to the beach, and then we stayed at the house, at the beach house, and everybody had their own room, which I really appreciated, because, well, sometimes when we go on vacation, or if my grandma is visiting, sometimes my mom requests I share a room with her. I love my grandma and everything, but I like my privacy whenever, if it's one of my best friends coming, when I would do sleepovers, then yeah, of course. But, but most of the time, I'm not big on sharing my room. I kind of like my own space. So in fact, since my room is the biggest room now, the last couple of years when we've had family come over to stay with us for the holidays, I get sent to I decide to sleep on the couch in our little den area, and the couch isn't that bad. The couch is, I choose to do it. I choose to sit there. I know sleep in that room, so I know a lot of people aren't big on the whole. But I don't want my mom to go through all the trouble of getting out the sleep mattress and everything, and But yeah, so I'm big on I like having my privacy because I like being able to get on my computer before I go to bed, and, sometimes I talk myself to sleep. But anyway, so yeah, that was really fun, and of course I brought a whole bunch of books with me that I knew I was not going to finish, but I did make a progress on quite a few of them, at least. But let me show you the books that I read today. I started this one yesterday, because originally I started with Brave New World, but then I just wasn't feeling that book. I read it back in high school, and at the time I was like, oh, this is okay, I'm just reading just to read it because it was assigned reading, so I was just trying to get it read, because I'm one of those people who actually will actually read the books that are assigned. I know it's not cool to actually read the books, and it's cooler to cheat and look at the spark notes, but I will actually read the summer assigned reading, even if I don't like it. And so I decided to read it again. My sister had I don't know if that was my original copy that we bought the summer before that year, the school year that we were assigned it, or if my sister just happened to have a copy, I don't know, but I borrowed it from her along with Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger. So I was trying to get those read so I can at least give those two back to her. The next time we finally get to visit her house, go to her house. And well, but then I was okay with Franny and Zooey because it wasn't that long. Although I think I felt the same way I felt about rereading Catcher in the Rye, where it was like, I didn't really connect with the characters. They were kind of annoying, and not a lot was going on. I'm a very plot-driven reader. And, although Franny and Zooey was a little bit more tolerable than Catcher in the Rye. I didn't want to, Franny, the character Franny, I did not want to strangle as much as I wanted. I didn't want to, well, I shouldn't say strangle, but smack, hold it upside the head. And I also want to smack Zooey upside the head. Especially the way they treated their mom in that book. But I've already ranted about that I think in my last literary ramblings. So, I'm not going to get into that. But, so I ended up DNFing, which I feel every time if I DNF a book at the start of the month or towards the end of the month, it makes me a little anxious because I'm like, even though as I always say, I know it's not about quantity of the books you read, but at the same time, I feel guilty that, oh, I hope and especially because at this point I don't have any book finished right now. Like the books I brought with me are wall tomes. When we went to the beach, and I knew I wasn't going to finish any of them. I just wanted to put a dent in a few of them. But so after I DNF'd that one, I decided right before we left for our vacation, I decided when I got back, I would read this one as well. So I started this one and it's The Life She Was Given by Ellen Marie Wiseman, and it looks like she's written quite a few books actually. There's What She Left Behind. I'm guessing that was the last book she published, I think. Or, I don't know if that was The Plum Tree. Because I kind of go by how the books, when they list the other authors' works, I kind of go by how they list them. So maybe The Plum Tree. So maybe The Plum Tree came out more recently than What She Left Behind, but it draws attention to What She Left Behind. It says the Ellen Marie Wiseman, author of What She Left Behind. And then she also wrote The Plum Tree, Coal River. Yeah, so it's because this one is The Life She Was Given. But so, and I think, I don't remember what the other two were about. I mean, there's always the quote, the blurbs usually kind of give you an idea. Small town with strong female characters. Okay, so What She Left Behind is a coming of age story, and then The Plum Tree. Okay, so The Plum Tree is set in Germany during World War II. Okay, and I think that Coal River it's called Coal River, so it makes sense that it's about coal mining town, I think. And then this one is about a little girl who is actually an albino. She was born an albino, and her mom, she's a total bitch, sells her to the circus freak show, and she's only like, I don't remember how old I don't know how old she is at the moment, but she's a really young little girl, and it's a mixture of, and it's very much a mixture of abuse, but also there's glimmers of kindness. There's people that are actually kind to her and intrigued by her, but then there are people that, because she's so young, that leads her to believe that she's a monster because of her skin pigmentation, and in the fact that her mom and dad locked her up in the attic, never let her out, and that even her dad, who did show signs of that he did feel some affection for her, that he didn't even bother to try to fight her mom. Like, he would briefly, but then he would give up and just leave her there, and he would give her presents and tell her stories and stuff, and her mom is like, no, she's a monster, she's an abomination, you shouldn't spoil her and stuff. It's like, you lock her in the attic, and she's never been in the outside world, and she's so young. And I do not understand people like that, people like her mom, or the guy who kind of runs the freak show, Merrick. How they treat it, like, it's like they have never had experience with a child before, they don't know how to treat a child. And I hate those two characters. And Barlow, I don't like Barlow either. But, I mean, Barlow is very typical greeny bastard, while Merrick is just the way he actually interacts with Lily. That's her name, Lily. And then you also have another story, which is the story of Julia, her mom was so strict and so many rules, and finally she ran away from home, and she lives out on the streets for a long time and has to get a job at a cafe as a waitress, And then eventually one day at work, a solicitor comes saying that her mom has died and she has inherited her homestead, the Blackwood Manor, which is the same place that Lily came from. I don't know if Lily's like her grandmother, maybe her mom. You know, Julia's mom is Lily's daughter, which would be kind of sad because the impression I get, like I said, is that Julia experienced a different kind of abuse, I think. Although I don't know if you would call it. But it's very sad, and if it's hard to read a book about abuse towards children and animals, then this might be a very difficult to read. And you might not want to read it. But so far, it's really good. It's a very beautiful story. And I like stories about like circuses and like quote unquote freak shows. And that's the word that they use. Okay, that's not my word, but in books about like carnivals and stuff. Like one of my favorite episodes on Ghost Whisperer takes place at a carnival, where Melinda has to she's helping the ghost of this famous illusionist who thinks that accuses his brother and his girlfriend for killing him. And so she has to help him move on and figure out what really happened and figure out if they really killed him or not. And that also takes place at a carnival type setting. And maybe that's a part of why I like It by Stephen King, because, you know, you're dealing with a clown that's a monster, and there's a little bit of a feel to it that's carnival-esque. I want to read more stories that take place at a circus. Yeah, I read Water for Elephants. I really liked it. I really enjoyed that one. And I also enjoyed the movie adaptation of it. I don't know how accurate is the book, because a lot of times that's debatable. So I like the setting, although, like I said, the way they treat the animals is really crappy. But then again, they're also wild animals, and it's kind of really, like, it shows how inexperienced Lily is, because she doesn't realize that, yes, the animals are helpless and they don't deserve to be treated this way, but at the same time, those animals are also dangerous. And there's one point where she sees, I think it was a lion, getting, like, you know, tied up and abused, and so she's getting closer to it to try to help it, and then the woman, I think her name is Glory, comes and like, he's like, what are you doing? That lion could hurt you, and all Lily sees is that, I mean, that lion could like bite your head off or chew your arm off, and all Lily sees is the animal suffering, and in the, I think in the description on the front flap, it does say it's revealed that she's a bit of an affinity for animals. So, and there are moments in there that you're starting to realize, okay, she has some kind of connection with animals, because, you know, she feels they're, like, when she seems to be having panic attacks and anxiety, but I also feel like she has those whenever the animals at the same time are, like, scared or in pain or something, she feels it too. And there's one moment where, the guy who owns the circus, his girlfriend, has a little pet dog that approaches Lily when she's in the guy's office, when they're showing her to the guy. Barlow's his name, and the dog approaches Lily and like is wagging his tail and showing his belly so she can rub it, and and the woman who owns the dog, Alana, is like, oh wow, he's never done that to anyone. He hates everybody. So obviously that's another clue of, oh, she has this connection with animals. And I don't know if this is weird, because there's always people that I hear that say, oh, when it's a multi-perspective story, there's certain character perspectives I like. Their story, I'm more interested in certain stories, but for me, I'm interested in both stories in this case. And especially, now that I've read the description, the description again on the front flap, I'm definitely more intrigued about, like, what's the story. And these characters is Lily, if I'm in my writing, Lily is the grandmother of Julia, and there's some kind of, the front flap implies there's some kind of mystery about Lily, and also there's horses in the book, so if you like horses, there's also So yeah, I figure I'm gonna get through this one easily, quickly, and I'm definitely, and like I said, I definitely was more interested in this one than Brave New World. Okay, and then I also finally knew I needed to get back to this one, because part of the problem is if I don't get back to a book this size right away and read a little bit more of it, then it will take me forever. Like, for instance, it's been taking me, I keep going back and forth with this particular book, Count of Monte Cristo, because, I love it, I'm enjoying it, but there are times when it's a little bit, like I said, tedious. Like, there's parts of it that just aren't always, and I need a lot of concentration with a book like this. So, because I've taken long breaks and don't come back to it for a while, then the breaks get longer and longer until, like, it's a year before I come back to reading it. I'm very pleased that I'm, like, a little bit past the halfway point. This is how much I've read. So I'm on chapter 62, and there are still got a while to go, but I'm at least almost done with the first page of table of contents. There's about 2 more on this, and then I have this whole set chapters to read. This right here, but still, I mean, it's better compared to So I decided I need to get back to this one, like, right now. So today, I read the remaining chapters of this book. And basically Fitz is traveling with the female minstrel that he met. What is her name? I forgot her name. I mean, I just read this an hour ago. Starling. He's traveling with her, and they finally found the smugglers, Nick and his sister, Pelf? I don't know if I'm saying that right. And I was so happy he got reunited with Night Eyes. Night Eyes found him again. And I love that relationship, that bond. They're so sweet together, so cute. Although there are times when I'm like, no, Night Eyes, he has to stay with the humans. He's still, in literal sense, he's still human. He's not a wolf like you. Yes, metaphorically, he's a wolf like you, and you have a brotherly bond. But at the same time, he's still a human. He has human needs, and there's things that Night Eyes doesn't understand that Fitz understands better. Like how he needs to travel with these humans, and Night Eyes like, no, let's go alone together. It's better. We're better off together. It's just you and me. And then Fitz is kind of forced to, so that he can keep a close eye and, on Night Eyes so they can stay together. He tells Nick, he's like, oh, Night Eyes is my dog. And of course, Night Eyes is just wrong. He's like, are you kidding me? I have to pretend to be your pet dog? It's like, you're going to pay for this later kind of mentality. And it's really funny, his, reaction to it. And then we also, what I like about that, what's her name, what Robin Hobb does is that she has these, in the beginning of each chapter in all 3 of the books, in this trilogy, she has this little part in italices that I really like, where it kind of gives a little brief of other characters, the history of Buckkeep, and what's going on with them. In this case, since Fitz is separated from most of the main characters we met in the first 2 books, those little italices parts kind of give you a bit of a what's going on with the other characters, and it also, and of course it still, kind of tells you about, some of the little things, one of the chapters I read today, explained the minstrels and how they were revered and they could hang out with everybody, all classes, and be, friends with everybody. But then, now with Regal on the throne, minstrels are not as aren't as valued, aren't as beloved, and they have to be they have to be just as careful as people like Fitz do. And that's but I feel like because this is first person and we're mostly in Fitz's head, we're mostly with him. It's his perspective on everything. So those little bits, that little brief part of the game, kind of allows you to touch base with the other characters and what's going on with everybody else and what happened to them, what has happened to them during Fitz's when he's with what's going on with Fitz. It kind of touches base on what's going on with the other characters at the same time, like. And also the whole skilling magic allows that to happen as well. Like he's able to skill with other people, so we get into like he's constantly like he's either skilling with Verity or the last chapter he accidentally skilled with Regal and found him. He's talking to Burl. He's using Will's power, draining the power from Will. And talking to Burl and Karad and finding out, it's like what happened with Fitz and everything. And, he's really pissed off. Regal's really pissed off and is like, unless I see a body, the kid's not dead. I need to see a body. So you're going to go find him. You're going to bring me his bones and all that stuff. And then he also kind of has a vision, skills, and gets inside Molly's head as well. Which if Molly found out, I think she would be pretty pissed. So sorry, guys. It's really gross. I accidentally spit there. But he gets inside Molly's. He skills by going into Molly's head, which, like I said, she's gonna be pretty pissed if she finds out that he did that. But it's his way to keep an eye on things and see how they're doing. And Burrick, of course, is with her, helping her raise the baby and everything. And I feel so bad for Fitz because he would love to be there to help Molly raise the child. Raise the baby and everything. But of course Molly knows that he would never abandon his king. And so I'm wondering if he's going to be kind of jealous of Burrick and is going to be a little like, you're honing in on my territory. Even though he loves and cares about Burrick. And he probably at this point he probably doesn't want to hurt Burrick anymore because he already hurt him once. And that's how he ended up in the position he is now, where he's separated from everybody because he's pushed everybody away. And Shane has finally realized maybe we should have left you to your own devices a long time ago. Which that's sometimes a harsh way to learn, but you learn from that. When someone is like, well, we're just going to have to force you to learn the hard way, which, and that's what Fizz is doing. He's learning the hard way. And he's living with the guilt of how he's pushed everybody away and he can't be involved in everyone's lives anymore. And they probably wouldn't have as much sympathy for him. I know Shane would not appreciate his whining. That's for sure. But anyway, I don't know if I'm gonna read a little bit more of this today or not. But I definitely gonna go running soon because the weather is great right now. Okay, so that's what I'm currently reading today. Let's talk about the little bit I read during my vacation. Okay, so let's see. I read very little of this one, so let's just talk about this real quick. I got to book 3, I guess. We've they were meeting with Father Zosim and Dimitri. They were waiting on Dimitri, and he didn't get there yet. But I don't think he arrives until after the father meets and greets the people, and they're talking to him, asking for his blessing and his advice and stuff, and then Dimitri does show up eventually after all that, and of course, he tries to be polite and respectful to his father, and that does not, of course, things break, they butt heads, and a fight starts, and Dimitri basically points out that his father's a hypocrite at one point in the argument, because, he's criticizing Dimitri for leaving his fiance, his perfectly nice and beautiful fiance, for a woman he dubs a whore. And he's like, and Dimitri's like, you're such a hypocrite. And we do, when we first are introduced to the father character, Fedor Karamazov, you find out about him and that he's had a thing with I think it's Dimitri and Ivan's mom, and then Alosha's mom. I think he has a separate mom to them. And then he didn't leave them, and now that the brothers are adults or young adults, he comes back into their lives. And the father is such a drama queen, and he's one of those people who's woe is me, everyone's against me, and oh, my life sucks. And he's also I asked my mom about this word, but now I forgot it again. Those type of people that can't help but lie. My mom told me the word, reminded me of the word, but I cannot remember it again. I forgot what the word is again. But those people who just can't help but lie. That's their father is that kind of person. He can't lie. He can't help but lie. He just keeps, over exaggerating everything and making himself seem like the victim and everything. And when no one agrees with him, no one's on his side, everyone kind of is rolling their eyes at him and humoring him and stuff. And because of that big argument, he essentially gets kicked out of the meeting or whatever. They end the meeting there. And the father said, I agree with Dimitri. The father's such a hypocrite. He's so annoying. And just it's dude, get over yourself. The whole world does not revolve around you. But, so I obviously am not gone very far in this one yet. But I am really enjoying it. I'm very intrigued by it. And I guess, for me personally, I like all the, so, what he's trying to do is get to page 200. That's what I need to do. I need to get to, that's what's really helping me with these longer books, is that I've been basically dog-earing to the page I want to read up to. And it also helps when the chapters are short, or the little sections or whatever. So I like I said, I haven't got very far in this. It feels like I've read a lot, but really I haven't. Only read this much. But that's what happens when you get mass market paperbacks that are that size. It feels like you read a lot, but you really haven't. So yeah, I need to read this. Actually, I might read this one today. A little bit of this one today. Okay, and I finally started The Great Hunt. This was one of those books that I was like, I don't know when they're going to start filming again. And my problem with series, once they make them a TV show, this is what happened with Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire series. I started the books, and the show had already started the show had been going on for a while at that point. And I started the books, and then I started watching the show. Because I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to get these books done, and, and the problem is, I said, and I think I have talked about this before, that, if I've read the book, or if I've seen the movie or the show first, then all of a sudden my desire to read the book is lessened, because I'm like, oh, I already know the story, and I don't need to. Although in the case of Song of Ice and Fire series, it's probably good to read the books too, especially after the way they ended the TV show. Daniel Green put it, I like his opinion is that the writers kind of got lazy after a while and just gave up. And I agree. I think that's essentially what happened. They just wanted to do something different. They were done with the show. But there's you can argue, I know not everybody will agree, but most people probably won't agree, but you can argue in defense of them as well, because George R. R. Martin had not written the last couple books yet. So they were kind of working at the, you know, they were trying to, come up with things on their own without the material of the book to help them out. And maybe they were scrambling, but then at the same time, like, if you're a writer, you gotta be able to be creative. And I think Daniel had mentioned in his video that HBO did give them, they could do more was going to give them more episodes. Because they were like, oh, well, you don't crunch this into 8 episodes, but they did, and it went bad. No, I also agree with Daniel Green that it wasn't fair that as soon as people heard that they were going to do I think they're going to do it's the sci-fi called The Three Body Problem. I've never read it, but it's not fair to be like, oh, they did so terrible, because those two got D&D'd, and it wasn't until the last few seasons that things went downhill. It was like the first several seasons of Game of Thrones were, no matter, I don't care what people say, the first 3 seasons were really, the first few seasons, however many seasons people say were good. They were great. Great storytelling, great characters, great character development. So yeah, the last few seasons went downhill, but you cannot discount what was there before, what they did before. So and I think The Three Body Problem is already a finished work anyway, so it's not like they'll have to make it up at the top of their heads. So I think we should give them another chance. But so I bring that up because, like I said, with Witcher and the Wheel of Time series, I don't want what happened with Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones to happen with these 2 series. I want to progress really well, and I want to keep going with the books and not fall behind with reading the books just because I'm thinking, oh, the TV show, so it's okay. I don't need to read the books right now because of the TV show. Because some of the TV shows, especially with TV shows, they can be very different from the books. I mean, a lot of people say that the Game of Thrones TV series is different from the books. There are a lot of differences. And as people always say, there's characters that die or are alive in the books that, are the opposite in the TV show. Now, it'll be easier with the Witcher series because the Witcher books are not chunkers like these books. So that'll be a little bit easier. So which reminds me, that's another book I need to read. I need to read Baptism of Fire. And the Tower of Swallows too. And then I think there's 2 more books that I need to get at some point. 2 or 3 more. I don't know. I don't know how many books are in that series, but anyway. So I'm trying to read as many books from the Wheel of Time as possible. So you have, that's another one that is all the books are completed, and so it's been out for a long time. So, but that one, the people who helmed that TV series won't have a problem like the D&D had with Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones. So I started The Great Hunt. And I don't know where they are exactly, but our core group of characters are at this place. The Aes Sedai come, and Lan, while he's trying to kind of train Rand al'Thor to fight, he's like, why haven't you left yet? It's been 3 weeks. You should have left by now. The Aes Sedai, they don't trust you, even though Moiraine does. The rest of them don't know you, and only certain people know that Fitz. Only certain people have the suspicions about Fitz and know that he's different. Which there are a lot of older fantasy. I wonder if there's a few older fantasies where our main character is a male. He has a female best friend who he has feelings for. Because both in the first year trilogy and this one, they have a situation like that. But I don't think our main characters are too main core. The main guy aren't gonna fall for these covers are so 80s. I feel like, or early 90s or something. These covers. I want to buy those new ones, but I can't justify myself in doing it. Although I haven't done that with Dickens, where some of my Dickens books I've been trading in some of the copies I've had. And there was another book recently where, like, I was tempted to. What's that book? Speaking of, I can't check, but I finally went to that used bookstore, and I was trying one of the Live Ship Trainers books was there, but I think it was the same one that I did not need. And that one, I was tempted to trade that one for, get that one and then switch that one with the copy of that book that I had, but I always second guess. Like, I keep thinking, is that the one? Because I would be so mad if I missed the opportunity of buying that one. But what I would probably do is buy it on thrift books at some point. But anyway, and so Rand is trying to sneak away, but all the gates are blocked. The group of Aes Sedai are showing up to have a meeting or whatever, and Rand, knowing what's going on, decides, does that thing that a lot of guys do, girls don't like. It's mostly something that guys do, where women do it too, I feel like, in books. But pushing the people that care about you most, pushing them away, treating them like crap, because, I'm better off alone, though I will be constantly putting them in danger, so I better push them away, so I'll treat them horribly, because I know that if I tell them to go nicely, that they won't listen, they'll insist on protecting me, so I have to be an asshole to them. That whole thing annoys me. It makes me roll my eyes every time. Apparently it makes Rand's friend, Egwene roll her eyes too, because she catches him and she's like, I know what you did to, Pip and Perrin and Matt. I know how you treated and Loial. I know you did that on purpose, so you know what? I'm not gonna let you get away with that. So she's like, you don't have to worry about the Aes Sedai, but just in case, okay, fine, you can hide in the dungeon. But there's a guy in the dungeon from their old village. I think that's where he's from. His mind has been taken over by the evil guy, the Dark Lord or whatever. I don't know if that's really what he's called. But I know it's similar to. And she's been talking to him and to the gang. I can't. Padan Fain, I think that's his name. She's been talking to him. And there are times when he seems lucid, seems like he's back to his old self, but then there are times when he's back to, being mind controlled by the bad guy. And so finally, Egwene finally starts to agree with Rand and be like, maybe this was not the best idea for you to hide here. And that's the last chapter I read. I only read up to chapter 4. So that's why I always try to do. I at least try to read the first at least 4 chapters of the book. So that's this one. Okay. And then, so the 3 books I read the most. Before I get to those, let me just talk about. I did go back into. I started this last November, I think, or last December. Empire Falls. I remember being kind of interested in the miniseries, so I saw the book and decided to buy the book. Although I wish I got a paperback copy instead. But this is about a small town in Maine. A lot of people write about small towns in Maine. But maybe this is because I've read so many Stephen King books. But anyway, I'm a sucker for small town stories, like whether it's a small town in Maine or Massachusetts or something, or even a small southern town. too. But and our main character is Miles Roby, and it's him and his teenage daughter. He's having issues with his wife. He and his wife are divorced, I believe. His daughter is and the town is essentially kind of falling apart. It's about their lives and what's going with what's going on with this town is going belly up, and just watching it fall apart and everything. And it could go either have a positive ending or like a bittersweet ending, like a really happy ending, or just like usually these stories kind of have a bittersweet ending or but I don't know. I don't know if I want to keep going or not. But I feel like, to be fair, I need to read at least a good chunk of it before I decide that it's not the book for me, and that maybe I would be better off watching the miniseries. But I want to read at least a little bit before if I'm going to decide to do that, then I want to get a good amount read before although it's kind of a bad sign that I'm already second guessing and being like, maybe I'm not interested in this after all. But like I said, I'm gonna try to read but with stories like this that are about characters and that are this long, sometimes it's very hard for me, and sometimes I end up losing interest in it. But I'm gonna keep trying. So yeah, I just wanted to say a little bit of what's going on with that and let you guys know that I'm reading that one. Okay, so let's go ahead and I didn't read much. Like, I started reading Macbeth. Ooh, crap! Should not have said that. Because in theater, there's a superstition about saying the name of the Scottish play out loud. But maybe I think that's just when you're in a theater. Yeah, you can't say the name. But because it's like bad luck to say the name of the Scottish play, so everyone refers to it as the Scottish play if you're a Shakespeare aficionado or just a theater nerd. But I think I'm okay. I think that's okay that I accidentally said it. And even if I'm not, even if I am, whether I'm okay or not, I kind of like that idea of being like, I know that superstitious belief, and sorry, I have so many bites on my legs. There are like these, on the beach, there were these little flies and I can really easily get bitten. I guess they like my blood or something, because I constantly am getting bitten every time I'm in this, during the summer, in the spring, when I'm surrounded in a place where there's a lot of flies all around, and they constantly are biting my legs and my arms and stuff like that. It's just so annoying. But anyway, yeah, I kind of like saying that. I know that's superstition, and I'm a theater person too, because technically in high school I became a thespian. So I'm not it's more like an amateur thespian, as in I was that in high school, but I'm not like a professional actor or anything. But either way, I kind of like saying that. So I think this is the Scottish play. This refers to the Scottish play. I think this is Othello. This one. I don't know which. Those two pictures. I don't know which one's supposed to be Hamlet and which one's supposed to be King Lear. I don't know. I can't tell. I want to say this might be King Lear, and this one might be Hamlet. But which, by the way, next time I'm gonna not get a library binding of this book. I do not like the library binding. But anyway, so I read a little bit, but I didn't get very far. I got to the point where the character Macbeth and Banquo they run into they meet the three witches who tell them of the prophecy that Banquo's children are going to be ruling the kingdom, and that so will Macbeth, the character. He will eventually rule the kingdom. Of course, that probably won't last. But that's as far as I got, because it was kind of hard. Like, this particular book was kind of hard for me to read. I just wanted to bring, so it was like, I have Shakespeare, I got this collection of Shakespeare plays, I'm going to read Shakespeare now. And I gotta admit, even though it annoys when people are like, my dad will make silly jokes about, oh, you're reading so much and you're going to get a book this size done in a day and stuff. It's like, because it's like, no, that doesn't happen. I'm not that good. I'm not that fast of a reader. And I know he's being harmless. It's harmless, just teasing. He's not like abusing me or anything. It's just, he just likes to tease me. And, but it does, sometimes I do get a little annoyed about it. But then at the same time, I think I bring books like this because I want to be like, look, I am capable of reading something like this. You know, it's almost like a sense of, I can read this. So I'm smart. I am capable of reading something like this. But like I said, I only read like a little bit of it. The first few scenes of Act 1, I guess. The first up to scene 4 of the. Like I said, it's one of those books where I definitely need to read it when there's not as much noise going on around me. Like, I can't read this at the pool, not just because I don't want to ruin the book, but there's too much noise, too much talking, and, the kids were all, Harrison was running around, there was splashing, and, there were a couple times when I was tired, because, it was just definitely a book that I cannot read. Okay, so, I've read the first, this is another one of those books that I brought in because I wanted to prove that I can read it. So I read the first two book, quote unquote, books of this one, of Paradise Lost by John Milton. The first part kind of is the book 1 kind of talks about Adam and Eve and how they were the first sin. And Eve, they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and how not only was that the first sin, but it kind of ruined things for the human race. And but it kind of like sums that up. But then it's like, but first we need to tell you about Lucifer and how he fell from heaven. And this epic poem implies that the snake is Satan. But the Bible doesn't ever say that. The Bible does not say the snake is Satan. Of course, I'm going by what someone said on BookTube. They were saying that a lot of the ideas we have for images from all the Bible stories come from this. Because I have not read the Bible because I'm lazy. And it's just the Bible is just a hard thing to read. And at least with this, it's a poem format, so it's a little bit easier. Not as much. It doesn't look like as much to read as the Bible. And so we are introduced to the image on the cover, the painting on the cover, or drawing, whatever you want to call it, reminds me of the Jungle Book, the animation in the Jungle Book. Like, this could be Kaa from the Jungle Book. But anyway, although I don't think there will be parrots in the jungle. I don't think. So, we learn about Lucifer's fall in, I think, still in book 1, and how it happened, and how he questioned God, I think. At least I'm also kind of going by, what, shows like Supernatural kind of imply, because that deals a lot with Christianity and Christian mythology on the show Supernatural. And that show kind of implied that Lucifer just kind of questioned God and didn't like how God favored humanity because so Lucifer, because of that, because he questioned God, God cast him down, and so it made him bitter and angry and want to get back at Daddy for doing that. But like I said, that's kind of what Supernatural, the show Supernatural, kind of implies with the whole Lucifer and God storyline. And I do kind of like how it does a parallel between, you know, the Winchesters and their relationship with each other and their father versus, paralleling the relationship between God and the angels, or Cain and Abel with the Winchester family. I always find that aspect of the show very interesting. Actually, like I said, I'm one of the people that still kind of liked when they delved into angel and demon mythology and Christianity. But maybe that's because I am a Christian myself. I consider myself a Christian. But anyway, and then the book 2 is all about how Lucifer is getting the angels to take back. I mean, Lucifer and his minions or demons or whatever talk about, they need to go to war with heaven, and they want to get back their place in heaven, and everyone keeps throwing these ideas to Lucifer on how to handle that. And I think one of the ideas was to kind of mess with his creation of humanity and stuff. I think that was one of the suggestions. I think I kind of get what's going on. I kind of have some understanding, and it does help that I've had conversations about, and seen movies and stuff all about our mythology, because like I said, I consider myself I am a Christian. That's what our family believes, and so I think that helps with understanding and figuring out what's going on in this. I'll come back to that. So, and then I stopped at book 3. And each of the books so far basically have an arguing what the kind of summing up what that section is about in the first part, and then so kind of, and I think that helps to give us an idea of what's going on in that part of the poem. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. It was kind of fun to read. It's there are times when it's hard to follow, but I think I got a basic gist of what's going on. Okay, so before I get to that one, so I read a little bit more of Bleak House. And the Esther and Jarndyce are still trying to get a profession for Richard. I think he joins the Navy or something. He expresses interest in it, so he joins that. And Ada and Esther go to they meet the Miss Badger and her Mr. and Miss Badger, and they have a conversation with them. And Mr. Badger tells about how his wife had 2 previous husbands, a professor, which I think he was a professor in biology, and then another guy who I think was a military guy, I don't remember. And how Mr. Badger can't, he's I'm not as cool as they were, I'm not as impressive as they were, and his wife insists that he is. So we kind of have a conversation with that, and then eventually they run into Ms. Jellybelly again. Jellyby again. I don't know if it's Jellyby or Jellyby, because sometimes Jellyby and certain names can be spelled B-Y. But it might be Jellyby. And they run into her, and she's finally kind of resigned to her mother, how her mother is. And she's met this guy and has made a fiance. His first name is Prince. I don't remember his last name. But he has kind of a dad who's also a douchebag, and everyone look at me, I'm so smart and everything, and so proper and sophisticated. And he's kind of oh, my son Prince is never going to be like that. He's never going to be like me, all impressive and everything. And I think he loves his son, but he's also disappointed by his son. And he's kind of an arrogant dick. He's not a good dad. And then after that party, Anna has reveals to Esther, which is something that Esther already knew, that she and Richard are in love and they eventually want to get married. And so she's like, oh really? How shocking. I did not know that. And they go talk to John Nice, and Mr. John Nice, he's like, okay, yeah, most people will probably tell you guys that you're too young, and you'll eventually, you need to learn to fall in love with you need to experience the world because you might fall in love with other people. But he's like, well, you know what? I don't need to tell you all that. I don't need to get out preaching with you two because maybe that will happen. Maybe maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe you'll stay together forever. You guys need to learn on your own. That's kind of his mentality, Mr. John Dice's mentality about them is that they need to figure things out on their own. Oh, and there was another chapter but yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I'm glad I read a little bit of it before we left, so I can read a little bit more. Because I kind of had a better understanding of what's going on. It did help that when on that particular vacation, I had a chance to have a little bit of more privacy. Like, there were times when my sister would take her kids to the beach, or they would end up going to the pool. So there were times when, and my grandma often would hide out in her room and watch the baseball game or something, or watch TV, watch the news, and basically it's either baseball or the news for her. And so that, there were times when I could go to the back porch, to one of the balconies and hang out on one of the chairs. Those chairs were so uncomfortable. I had to get at one point when I was sitting out there, I was like, okay, I need to get a pillow or a cushion because this hard, whatever is, it's uncomfortable. So I got a cushion at one point. But that allowed me to get a lot of my reading done. But I want to get back to this as well soon. I want to read a little bit more before October because this is probably the book I'll read for Victober. I watched Katie from Books and Things, her video on her announcing Booktober. Victober. Why did I say Booktober? Victober. And she was talking about it. And her challenge is basically to read a Victorian literature that's kind of based on a modern day genre that you like. And of course, they always will make suggestion of what you can read for the challenges. So she had a lot. So surprisingly, I've been worried because I might not be able to do any of the challenges, but some of them I actually can do. And she made a lot of suggestions for her challenge. And luckily for me, I have those books. I have some of the books that she suggested. So I was very happy with that. So that's a challenge I definitely can do. And then I can't remember whose challenge, but there was another person's challenge, and they were like, read a Victorian novel that you didn't get to last time. Because of course, I guess I'm not the only one who will get excited and pick way too many books, put way too many books on my TBR list that are unnecessary, that I'm probably not going to get to. And she said, if you can pick a book from that list, whoever's challenge it was had said, you can pick a book from that list that you didn't get to. Or that might have been the challenge that was suggested by one of the participants. One of the participants in the, I don't remember. But, so I was very, so I think I could do that one. I definitely can do that one. I don't think I can do like the challenge where you dress up like a Victorian, or like wear something that has to do, a Victorian wardrobe, like a Victorian dress or a piece of jewelry that looks like it could be from the Victorian period or something. I don't know if I have anything. I do have kind of a shirt that looks like how the top part of dresses from the Victorian era, I think. But I don't know if any of my dresses that I have for cosplay would work for that. That's what I should do one day. If the one dress that I was gonna wear this year for GalaxyCon, if that, and I probably the plan is I'm planning to wear that one for next year. That one is not Victorian, but if that one is if that one actually is a hit, maybe one day I can get a Victorian dress, or I could be a Victorian for Halloween one year. That'd be fun. But anyway, so anyway, I want to read, like I said, I want to read a little bit more of this before Victober comes, because I want to read this and I would like to get actually finished. And that book is actually could apply to Katie Jones. Okay, now that's the books where I read the most. Okay, so first I read up to chapter 18, which I think that's where I stopped last time. So I will definitely need to read past chapter 18 and soon, because I don't want to make the mistake I did before and take forever to get to chapter 18 and end up eventually having to start over. I think the last thing I read was, that's the last thing I remember reading before I started over again. So, it's East of Eden, and oh my god, the character, I don't know if anyone loves this character, but I cannot stand the character, I hate him, well, hate is a little bit harsh, but he does annoy me, is the, not Charles. Charles is Adam. Adam is like I want to smack him upside the head. He's such a frustrating character. And he's so annoying. He's such an idiot. And he can be so selfish sometimes. I mean, I get that he was afraid of Charles when they were younger. But he's not anymore, to the point where he doesn't care about Charles's feelings. He is like, I don't care about you. You don't scare me anymore, so I don't care about you anymore. You're a nuisance to me. You can just go away. Like, Charles, I appreciate, yeah, I understand not wanting to stay in one place and not wanting to get stuck in one place, but it's like, but Charles he really cares about the farm and wants to take care of it, and he really appreciates it, and to the point, and Adam doesn't want to, he doesn't care, he keeps talking about California and going there, and now all of a sudden when he finally does get to go to California, and now he's all about the land and taking care of it, and it's like, where was that attitude? Where was that attitude before? But I think the attitude was because he didn't have a reason. He felt like he didn't have a reason to care. Like, this was Charles's thing, and now he has met Kathy, and she ends up getting pregnant, and she clearly, and that's another thing. Like, everybody's so oblivious. Half the characters are so oblivious to Kathy and understanding her. Like, she's such a mean, hateful person, doesn't care about anyone, she's such an evil bitch, and she easily can brainwash people like Adam, which is what she does, and she also did that to Mr. Edwards, the guy who owned the house, the prostitute house. She manipulated him into falling in love with her, to the point where he got dangerous and even she was scared of him, and what he would do to her. And then she's another character, just like the father, Fyodor Karamazov. She's someone who can't help but lie. She, like in the book, it talks about how she believes her own lies at that point. When she says them, she believes them. Point where she forgets, she can't tell the difference between the lie and the truth. And to protect herself, because Mr. Edwards, when he found out about her secret about how she burned down the house, her home, and killing her mom and dad in the process, and she and so she kills them, and like essentially and so Mr. Edwards found out about that, and now she's panicking, and he's gotten to the point where he's really angry to where he abused her and hurt her, so she escapes him and that's how she meets Adam. and she needs Adam to protect her and give her shelter and take care of her. So she manipulates Adam to fall in love with her. And is like, I'm scared of Charles. He's so mean to me. And Charles does not trust her. He's not stupid. Not like Adam. He's not an idiot like Adam is. Adam's an idiot. And essentially, like, although the two of them do at one point sleep together, Charles and Kathy, they do sleep together because clearly I think Charles is also attracted to her. He just also doesn't trust her. Because, and even she realizes they're so much alike. They're a lot alike. So she almost kind of respects his lack of trust in her. Like, I think she respects Charles more than she respected Adam. But she also can't manipulate Charles. So and I think that's part of the respect. So she gets pregnant. She ends up getting pregnant. She ends up living with Adam and getting Adam to marry her at the last minute. Of course, Charles doesn't want that. He's like, what are you doing? Why are you marrying this woman, you idiot? You don't even know her. And he's like, oh, she's a victim. She's a little angel. She's just a victim of abuse and blah, blah, blah. And how can you treat her like this? And it's like, you just want to shake him and smack on the outside. You not realize how you're being manipulated? You're falling for her charms. I mean, do you not get that she is brainwashing you? She doesn't care about you. But of course, you can't reason with someone like that. Someone who is being clearly manipulated, so brainwashed by a person, they cannot see it. They do not see it. They are just so blinded by this person's light, their charm and stuff. They just cannot see through their rose-colored glasses of them that this person is not as rosy and shiny as they seem. So he essentially is, he ends up being tricked by, and he, even though she expresses, I don't want to go to California, he doesn't listen to her, and they go to California, and he's, thinking, oh, she's so excited, and she wants to go to California, and, don't worry, when you see everything, you'll change your mind, you'll be so happy and excited, because clearly he does not know this woman, he doesn't understand her at all, and so she ends up getting pregnant with his child. I think it's his, because she, like I said, she did sleep with Charles. But she ends up getting pregnant, and she tries to kill the babies because she doesn't want to be a mother. She doesn't care about these babies. She doesn't want these babies, so she tries to kill the babies. And then, Adam sees, oh my God, you're sick, and he calls the doctor, and the doctor realizes right away what's going on. And he is like, when he sends Adam out of the room to talk to her privately, he's like, why would you do this? There are so many women who cannot have babies and want to have babies. And I definitely have mixed feelings about that, because on the one hand, I believe if a mom doesn't want to have babies, then, she doesn't want to have babies. Although her method for getting rid of the babies was very desperate and harsh and brutal, but I mean, she was desperate, and she's evil. She doesn't care about anyone but herself. And so, yeah, her method was, but I mean, so it's like, it's kind of like the doctor guilt-tripping her and being a little condescending towards her, and really, but at the same time, I kind of get but I do understand, but before anyone says anything to me, I do get what the doctor's saying, which is that there are women who cannot have babies and want to have babies. And so he's kind of saying, you're lucky you get to have kids, but she does not want kids. This doctor does not know this woman at all. She's selfish. She's a horrible human being. She doesn't care about anyone but her. She's she's not pure evil, but she's kind of evil. And it's or at least that's all she knows. All she knows is that men who try to control her, men are easily manipulated. The world is a cold, cruel place. You have to survive it. So she's learned cold and brutal and how she can manipulate. At one point when she's a little girl, her mom catches her with these two boys. And it's like, the mom automatically is like, my angel would never do that, because she's a little girl. So of course you're going to assume, oh, these boys probably tried to rape my precious daughter. But if you, us, the reader, as the readers, we know that, oh, I don't know about that. I mean, she may be a little girl, but she's not, she's a lot, she can manipulate men, and these are boys, so they're even more manipulated. So I mean, and the boys tell them, man, it was Kathy's idea, but the mom's like, why are you lying? How can you say that about my daughter? And they act like she's an innocent victim because she's a little girl, so she looks the part of an innocent. But then the parents realize too late that maybe my daughter's not so innocent. Maybe she's just because she looks like a little girl. And it kind of reminds me of Orphan. Although now in the horror movie Orphan, the girl was not a little girl. She was just someone who was born with this, I don't know if they call it a disease, where she couldn't physically age. Like, not just how I look really young. I mean, she will always look like a little girl. Like, I will eventually age and look at least a little bit older. So, and the last, like I said, I remember stopping at the part where she has the babies and leaves Adam, and he can't believe that he can hardly believe that, and he's so heartbroken. You almost pity the guy, because he ends up, but then at the same time, you get really, like, you want to slap and throw cold water on him, because he essentially, when she leaves him, he's so shocked and dismayed, and, that it's like he doesn't even care about his kids. He doesn't care about the two boys he just had. All he cares about is the fact that God forbid, Kathy actually left him. Like, he couldn't even fathom that. Like, she essentially tells him, I'm gonna leave, I can't do that, I'm gonna leave once these kids are born, I'm leaving you. And he's like, oh, you'll change your mind when they're born. And then when this happens, he's like, no, you never told me that. Oh my God, you didn't tell me that. And she's like, yeah, I did. So it's like, it's kind of, you pity him, but at the same time, it's like, it's your own fault for naively believing that Kathy was such a loving person. But then, of course, it's like, is it really fair to blame someone for being manipulated like that? Like, it's not their fault, because how do you know until you're in that position yourself? Because as the reader, I can easily be like, how can you believe that? You're such an idiot. But then it's like, what if I were in that moment? Could I be easily manipulated by someone like that? Like, I don't know. So I gotta make sure I get that part. Which I love Lee and Hamilton's characters. So I love Charles and I love Lee and Mr. Hamilton. And I was reminded that the narrator of the story is Hamilton's grandson, Mr. Hamilton's grandson. But I like those characters because just their attitudes and everything about life, and they're smarter than Adam, that's for sure. And I like how Lee pretends to be like an ignorant Chinese person, and he still talks in what does he refer to it as? I can't remember what he refers to it as. I can't remember, what is it? Where is it? I can't remember, it's gonna take me too long to find it. But, Samuel Hamilton is the, Pigeon or something. And, like, he talks, but he actually knows English, and he speaks very, he has an Americanized way, he can speak very, like, Americanized English very well, but it's like people expect him to speak a certain way, so he speaks that way because he doesn't want to deal with the fact that people will not, like he says, people don't believe him when he speaks, Americanized English. That's just what I'm gonna call it, because this takes place in America. Like, he speaks in an educated way, and people don't believe him, so he's like, well, you know what, I'm just gonna give them what they want. I'll just speak like I'm a dumb dumb foreigner, that speaks in broken English because that's what they expect of me. So I find that funny that he essentially is like, has the attitude of, well, they expect me to speak that way, so I'm going to speak that way. because they wouldn't believe me if I proved that I was an educated man that spoke the way people do here in America. So I definitely gotta read a little bit more of this. I want to get past section 18. I'm talking so much that my throat is feeling a little tickled. Okay, so I also read, and this is we're doing this read along of Way of Kings. Some people are doing a read along of Way of Kings. The problem with the book this size is there's so much that happens in this book, and if I take so many long breaks, I don't remember everything. So I've been trying to write down what happens in the books that I'm currently reading after I stop reading them, especially if they're this size. You finally get back to what is her name? Shallan. That's right. It doesn't actually say it here, but I just remember Shallan, and the king of where of the land where okay, now that's not a name I can remember. What's her name? Princess where oh, okay. Oh, perfect. Jasna, that's her name. Princess Jasna. It sounds like Princess Jasmine. Jasna, I think she's a princess. Yeah, because her uncle is Dalinar, and her mom is, and they are kind of talking philosophy, and her education was very different growing up than how Jasna is trying to educate with her, and wants her to speak her mind and be witty and funny, but just be careful what she says. Just find a balance. And when they're talking, the king of where Jasna has been staying comes to wanting to eat dinner, wanting his ulterior motive to talk to Jasna, and he meets Shallan. Shallan is there, and she's inviting to eat with them. Jasna reveals that Shallan is an artist, so she draws his picture. But then she accidentally draws an image in the picture, these weird, creepy people in the background of the picture. I'm guessing they're gonna have to do with her, whatever she. So that's where I am with those two. In the next chapter, I'm gonna read chapter 33 is we're with those characters again. We're with Shallan again, and she's reading all these books on the history of the world and stuff. And Dalinar, he is still going back and forth with deciding if he's gonna retire or not, because people think he's going a little crazy, which I personally don't think he is. I think we're going to find that he's not going crazy. That he's really seeing these visions and they're legit. But at the moment, it looks like he's going crazy, so he's kind of debating, should I retire? And Jasna's mom shows up. She's the king's... because Jasna's father, I think, is the king. And her mom is the other woman whose name I don't remember. She shows up, and there's definitely, once again, it's a little bit of sexual tension between Dalinar and this woman that they have history, but she chose the guy who's the current There's so many characters and so much. I definitely get why that's one of the aspects of why some people can't get into fantasy, because there's so many characters, so many character names. You almost have to create a family tree to remember these characters' names. It's just when I start reading them, I don't think about that. When I'm reading these books and I read, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not dwelling on that fact. And then after talking with Jasna, Dalinar does decide, you know what, I think it's best if I do retire. And her mom, Jasna's mom, was like, that's not a good idea. I don't think you should retire. But he's like, no, I made up my mind. I'm done with this. Because, he's questioning, and he's like, am I going crazy? Or maybe everyone's right. Maybe it's best if I walk away from this. I have a feeling that it's obviously not going to end there, because his characters, throughout this arc. And, look how we use this book. It's There's that, and then look at the back. It's a well-loved, well-read book. And it's been to a lot of places. And I think it's partly how I put my books on the shelf. I'm not like all neat and perfect and precise with putting my books away. Sometimes I just get really annoyed and I just shove them in there. Especially with the way I have some of the books that are my mass market paperbacks, and I have them set up. But anyway, because of what happened this one, I am tempted. But you know what? I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm not gonna buy more copies of these books. I'm just gonna always stick to getting mass markets of these. But anyway, and then we get to Kaladin, who is still working on Bridge 4, and everything is going pretty good in the Bridge 4. They're all they at least respect him, even if some of them don't trust him or don't like him. They're like, well, you're actually a good leader. I don't like you, I don't trust you 100%, but you're a good leader. And Gaz is like, wants to get rid of him, doesn't trust him. Gaz is like, I guess he's his boss, Lamaril. They want to plan to kill Kaladin. And of course, we're getting flashbacks of Kaladin in his life before, when he was the son of a doctor. He's trying to be a doctor in training, but he still wants to be a soldier. Which obviously we know he becomes a soldier. And, but maybe not in the way he wanted to be. Where he's realizing that maybe his dad had a point after all, and being a soldier wasn't that great. And their whole town turned against his father because of the one dude, and how his father couldn't save that dude's wife or something. Yeah, I think that's when it was. He couldn't save his wife, but he still saved the baby. I think that's when it was, and that's why this guy's having a turn against Cal's dad when Cal was a kid. And there's a new guy that shows up whose name I don't remember, and he comes and joins the crew, being all excited about this, and Kaladin's like, why are you excited and everything, do you realize what you're getting yourself into? But he invites him to join Bridge 4, and they come up with this method of, he comes up with this method of trying to carry the bridge sideways, like this, so they're protected from the arrows. And then everyone, during one of those raids where they're being shot at, they do that, but then everyone else sees that, and that puts everything into chaos, and it's currently gotten Kaladin in trouble, and he's realized his mistake. So of course, people's solution for punishing you is to, flog you or whatever, and he takes it like a man. Gotta give him props for that. But at that point, his friends, Bridge 4 crew's just so happy to be alive and not having hit by arrows, so they personally don't care, and in fact, feel like the way Kaladin's treated for this is not fair. But unfortunately, at the same time, Cal realized what he's done and his mistake. But I think these guys are really, so I'm guessing they're gonna play a major role throughout this whole part of the series, because what Brandon Sanderson is gonna do, I think he's gonna do 6 books, and then he's gonna do another 6 books, which are gonna be a separate story, I think. But anyway, so I'm sorry. Like I said, I've been talking so much that. So that's what's going on with this book. And I will tell you about the other read-along in a minute. But let me first talk about this. So I progressed in The Shining. This was one of those books where I watched Daniel Green's video talking about the adaptation versus the original book. So it's after watching, I was like, oh my god, now I gotta read that one, get back into that book, and bring that with me. So I brought that with me. So I brought this book with me to the beach and read some of it. So we're basically at the point where, and it's, let's see, we've got one of the major things that happened was the snow has started falling, and I know that when, and Stephen King is one of those authors that offers a lot of flashback stuff. throughout his books. And that's, I think, part of what makes them so long, is that it kind of really helps you get to know these characters and learn their histories, which I like it in this. I like in his books. I do like it. But it does make his books really long. But we had the part where it looks like the hedge animals are starting to come alive, and they're slowly creeping up on John. I don't know, because Daniel Green said his actual name is John. So maybe in the original copies of the book, his real name is John. His original name is John. But in my copy of it, it does say Jack. So maybe when this one was published, they went by what was the movie referred to him as. The adaptation referred to him as. But, so that was interesting. And it's also big print. The print is kind of big, and so that was really great. I never really thought about that, but those, hedgerows that are cut into animal forms are kind of creepy. Actually, now I think about it, I mean, Stephen King, he does that. He makes things that you wouldn't think are creepy. He makes them come off as creepy in his books, like clowns do. And of course at this point, like, Jack, I don't call him Jack, even if his original name is John, but it's Jack in this book. Jack is really, Wendy's worried because he's starting to show signs of, that those things that he does, when you're trying to quit an addiction, but there are things that you do that show that you're going through withdrawal of an addiction. He's doing all the little things. He's doing that. So he hasn't had a drink, but at the same time, he's showing signs that he's having withdrawals, and he might start drinking again. And he does get a little cranky at times, and kind of snaps at her. And he ends up calling Mr. Allman, and tells him, "I'm gonna write a book about your hotel, and why didn't you tell me all about the horrible stuff that happens?" And Mr. Allman is really pissed about that. He gets really mad about that, And his friend that got him the job is like, "How dare you, I went through all the trouble to get you this job, and you're gonna ruin it by being your usual petty self? I'm trying to be nice here and help you out, but you're not helping yourself by doing this." And so unfortunately Jack, who's he's pissed at everybody. He's like, "Everyone's picking on me day. It's pick on Jack day." But he's like, he knows that he cannot lose this job. So he's like, "Okay, fine. You're right. I will do my best not to do anything." But and then also there's references to 217. I was about to say 214, but 214 is referred to from his Stephen King's short story 214, which is in the Everything's Eventual. Oh my god, I remember the name. Everything's Eventual. I always forget the name of that collection for some reason. And at one point, so what's the point? Danny, he ends up finding him. He goes to 217 twice, and now he's in the room 217, and he finds the body of a dead woman, and she's talking to him. And his parents are both kind of asleep at the time. That's the last chapter I read. So this is so good. I know a lot of people are like, I'm one of those people who thinks this is so good and so interesting. It's hard to, Stephen King so far, it's very hard for me to pick and choose which books of his I love, but he's so good with characters. Even if, whether it's a horror book or not, because, again, he doesn't just write horror. He's so good at characters and world building, because he does build his own world. It may not be a fantasy world, it may be a world that we're familiar with, but it's still a whole another world. It's not everybody's familiar with small town America, and clearly it makes you not want to live in Maine. Although this takes place in Colorado, this particular one. But his books make you not want to live in Maine because they're so creepy. But then there are books, of course, that counteract to Stephen King's interpretation of Maine, his horror, But this is one of his books that does not take place in Maine. It actually takes place in Colorado. I've actually been to Colorado, but I've never been to this part of Colorado. I've only been to Denver, Colorado. And I only vaguely remember it. But I definitely, when I finish this, I will still probably I'll watch both adaptations because Stephen King did it, because Stanley Kubrick's movie it's not a good adaptation. It's a good movie, but not a good adaptation. I think that's what Daniel Green's video was about when I decided, well, I better get back to this. That's when it was about how the movie is a good horror film. Stanley Kubrick's movie is a good horror film. It's just not a good adaptation of Stephen King's work. But he made his own miniseries version, kind of like, so I want to watch both of them if I get a chance, or at least, who knows, maybe I'll find The Shining at Walmart, one of those versions, because sometimes, like, I found the original miniseries, The Stand, there. I think I've seen The Mist there, and I got a collection of Stephen King, some of his collection of movies based on some of his books and novellas there as well. But I love that. And once I get this done, it'll be nice to be able to tell my cousin Philip that I actually got an actual Stephen King novel read, so that we can have something to talk about. I don't know if he's read this one. If Philip has read this one. But he likes Stephen King. Okay, so finally we can get to the other read-along, and that is, so there's a Les Mis read-along going on, and I really like her channel, but I have only watched a handful of her only some of her videos, so I don't have her channel name in my head yet, but, a Les Mis read-along, and I'm glad I'm giving this book a second chance, because I'm liking it now, I'm liking it better. And like I said, I was very surprised that I had read it was an abridged version of the book that I read last time. And so this is an unabridged, as you can tell by the size. Like the book I had was originally, I don't remember but it's this little green mass market paperback with the title name is in yellow. And I think there's a picture on it, other than the title. But I read that one, and like I said, I did not realize that's an abridged version. So I was very pleased about that, and I've gotten basically to the point where Fantine has, like, the father of Cosette has left Fantine, and she's not friends with her friends anymore, her little group of friends, and she is forced to, like, do whatever she can to make money. She sends her daughter to live with the Thénardiers, who are greedy bastards, and keep, like, writing to her, like, we need more money, give us more money, and, like, increasing the request for money. And they actually have 2 daughters. I did not realize that. Which is probably why, Court of Miracles, which is partially based on Les Mis, that one has references that there's Eponine has a sister that, that is selling herself to be like a prostitute or something. But the musical or the movie with Liam Neeson and Jeffrey Rush and what's her name? I can't think of her name. From the Kill Bill movies, there's no reference to a sister. I don't think it's just Eponine. Although that movie, I don't know if Eponine's even in that movie, but she might not have been in that one. But the musical doesn't have a sister. It's just Eponine. But she sends Cosette to live with them, and of course, just like in the musical, Cosette is treated horribly by these people, and nothing is like Miss Thénardier is, Madame Thénardier spoils her daughters, and when Fantine sends like a nice pretty dress for her daughter, Madame gives it to her own daughter. And Fantine essentially has to do like, she has to cut her hair and get her teeth removed as well, her two front teeth, I want to say. And she lives in an attic room, and she's essentially like whatever she can to make money, to give money, because like I said, the Thénardiers are constantly being like, oh, we need more money, your child is sick and she could die, so we need more money for medicines, and all that stuff. And Jean Valjean is now under a different guise, Monsieur Madeleine, and he's a beloved. People are intrigued by him. There's a lot of mystery behind him. No one knows anything about him. They just know he's well read. And except for Javert, who comes into town, who's been in this town for a long time, is the policeman. He doesn't really trust Monsieur Madeleine. But they also like him, so they're not sure what to think, but they also kind of respect him and like him. And we got to the part where he saves that one guy's life who got caught and Javert, I think, is trying to get Monsieur Madeleine to admit who he really is, and he's like, I know there was only one man who was capable of lifting something like this without a jack and all that kind of stuff. And like, you can tell he's probably trying to get proof, and Monsieur Madeleine is like, you know what, I can't let this man die for the sake of my own, of getting caught by Javert. So he gets him out of there. He uses his strength, because he's still really strong from spending 19 years in prison, and the chain gang, and he gets him out. And this guy is so grateful to him. He didn't like him before, and he hated him and stuff, and there was a competitiveness between the two of them, more on his end than Monsieur Madeleine's end. And the fact that he saved his life makes him change his mind about him. And that's the last part I read in that one. Like I said, there's like so much going on. There's so much more in this book, and I'm so glad I'm rereading it, because there's so many things that I didn't like, that, and I keep putting little notes in here about how, like what the references to the musical were, the ideas that the musical had, like, where the songs would be and stuff in here. Like, in my book, I kind of, and that's really the best I can do as far as annotating. Like, I can write little bits of comments, like an LOL, or, or like whatever's easy for me to write. Like, I don't do it that often, because a lot of times I have to stop reading and make sure I put the note in there. And I keep thinking, do I want to waste all my little sticky notes for that? And they don't always stay, like, but yeah, I'm having fun with this. I'm so glad I'm reading this. It maybe helps that I read this, the first time I read it was as a teenager, and I was just thinking because, I should read it because I love the musical, but I was like, I don't like this. It's so boring. But I'm reading it now as an adult, and my taste in books has changed. So I'm definitely more engaged with it as an adult. And I think because I've been so much more exposed to the musical now, I think it provides more interesting context to the story, like what inspired the musical. I almost actually bought a physically bigger copy, but then I think it was abridged version. And plus, the reason why I still would buy mass market paperbacks and why I still like them is because I can travel with them, and like I said, they're cheap. So, I don't mind, Okay, now before I end this literary ramblings, I'm gonna show you guys what I ended up buying at the bookstore, because I was finally able to go to the other bookstore, in Southern Pines, and the I was gonna, it's one of those books where you can trade in books for credit, but then the problem is because they've been getting so many books to the point where they can't keep up with their books, and sometimes they have to sit there for a while until they can get through all of them. Because eventually their title will have to stop and, take care of people's purchases. So, and they only have, and it looks like they only have one person in there per day or whatever. And, so you have to let them know, call them for an appointment 24 hours in advance to let them know if you want to bring in books to be traded in. But I still was able to buy books. I just didn't get half price off them. Although I think the woman did, because I think I still kind of got a discount because I'm now that this is my second time I bought books from there and traded in books. So I guess because of that, I still got a little bit, because when I did the math on my calculator, when I added up how much each of these books cost, without not counting the taxes, I got one price, but then the price I got that she said that these books cost was a lot more different than what I got when I calculated on the calculator. So what I ended up getting is, first I got Different Seasons by Stephen King, and this one is 4 stories in this one, just like 4 Past Midnight. So the first one is Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, which is the movie with Morgan Freeman, and I cannot remember the other actor's name. So this is very, and it says, a compulsive and bizarre story of unjust imprisonment and escape. Escape from Alcatraz, which I've seen bits and pieces of that movie, but I've never watched it all the way through. And then Apt Pupil, which I have that one. I have the movie version of that one, which the movie stars Sir Ian McKellen is in that one. I don't know who plays the kid, but it's a golden schoolboy and an old man with a hideous past joined in a dreadful union. Oh, and this is the one with the body. Okay, so, I can't remember. Stand By Me. That's what the movie's actually called, but the short story itself is called The Body. 4 young boys journey into the woods and find life and death. Find life, death, and the end of innocence. I think basically they find a dead body. And then The Breathing Method, a macabre story told in a strange club of a woman determined to give birth no matter what. That's going to be interesting. I think the good news is that with Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption and then The Body, I'm familiar with those, but I've never really watched the movies. So I should be good. I mean, although I'm more familiar with the Shawshank movie than with The Body. The Body I've never actually really seen. I've just seen clips and stuff from that one. And Shawshank, I think I've seen more than just a few clips with that one. But I think I'm still okay because I haven't seen enough of them. So you can tell this is a used copy. Look at how, first of all, the pages are yellow, really yellow, and then the thing that holds them in open. You can tell the pages have been folded. So this book has been through a lot. It's been well read, and it's been well read clearly. See, that's what bugged me. Like, when a page, like, dog-earing is one thing, but when the page is like folded over like this, then that kind of bugs me. But if you dog-ear, then that's fine. I don't mind that. But yeah, so I think I'll be okay. Because unfortunately, with Secret Garden, Secret Window from Four Past Midnight, I have the movie and I've seen it quite a few times. So it's like I said, I'm thinking, as I said earlier in the video, I'm thinking, no, I've already seen the movie, so I know the story, so it just won't be the same. But that's one I do want to read. So, and that was $3.50. Okay, and then I also got, so I keep meaning to do this, get a different copy of A Tale of Two Cities, because I have A Tale of Two Cities, but it's a mass market paperback, and yes, I don't have a problem, clearly, I just implied that I don't have a problem with mass market paperbacks. I like them because they're easy to travel with, and they're cheap, but if I get the opportunity, sometimes I do, there's certain books, especially older books, I want to try to get this size of book. This is the mass market. This is the Barnes and Noble one, which I don't know why I love their covers. The Barnes and Noble classics. I like the color and everything, all the different bright colors. And this basically takes place during, I think, the French Revolution, and you have, it takes place in England and in France, and you have our main character, Sydney Carton, in which I just love Sydney. I'd marry Sydney. That just because since I've already read it, I read in college, so I know how this ends, and I'm just really, and this is one of Dickens' works where I don't like, which I know I've heard other people justify this to me, that Dickens and his early work, his female characters are not that well drawn, they're not as interesting, they're not as engaging, and I think this, and as I just said to Terry, and I was commenting on Jennifer Brooks' video when she talked about this book, that I think this story would have benefited from a love triangle. Like, especially Lucy's character, she would have benefited from being in a love triangle. So, if I could, I wouldn't mind writing, if I wrote but then I think wrote a fan fiction of this one, but then at the same time I would have to really put a lot of effort into writing, doing the research. But actually, I could do that and just pass off as, like, it started out as a retelling, but kind of do it also its own thing. That would be very interesting to do, It'd be kind of fun, actually. But anyway, so I bought a new copy of that, of A Tale of Two Cities. And I love this one. I've definitely been meaning to reread it, and that's the other reason why I wanted to buy another copy, an easier to read, copy that wasn't as small, and see if I still love it. I know, like Jennifer Brooks had said, that the characters aren't as engaging as in this one. There's only a couple characters in this one, like maybe even just one character, like, that are really interesting, but most of the characters are not that interesting. And this is very different from his usual foray. And this is actually one of the books that Katie said that you can read for her challenge, because it doesn't, like, her challenge, part of her challenge is you can read a book about something. I think it's Katie's challenge, or maybe it's a different challenge, one of the other girls' challenges, where you can read a book that's written in the Victorian era but takes place in a different, is not about the Victorian era. And this is one of those ones that's not about it, because this, like I said, is about the French Revolution. And how like these characters are kind of caught in the middle of it, and how, like, Lucy is engaged to an aristocrat, but he's going to be sentenced to death. He's in prison, and so for some reason Sydney looks exactly like him, so he takes Charles's place. I think that's the character's name, Charles. Although I guess I wonder if I gave away too much. But yeah. So yeah, I bought a new copy of them. The original copy. My original copy is gonna be in that pile in the corner of my room of books that are eventually gonna go to either the roast office, or at the moment the roast office is not open, still not open, but the other East bookstore is. So, and that's, I think, because that's a small bookstore. Okay, so the last book I got from there is Lorna Doone, and I think this is by Richard M. Blackmore, and I believe this is. I actually think this is one of the. I want to say this is one of the ones that Terry herself mentioned that she saw the movie, but the thing is, I'm not 100% sure on that, and she doesn't, and she might not necessarily remember. So, I don't know for sure, and I couldn't really ask her because she wouldn't remember if she saw it. She probably won't remember if she saw it because she probably saw it a long time ago if she did. Because a lot of times, a lot of the classics I've read, she's seen the adaptation because, of those classics, but she's never read the book, which is understandable because sometimes it's just easy to go be lazy and watch the movie adaptation. Especially the original classics, like if it's whether it's an ancient classic or like a Dickens or an Austen classic. But Lorna Doone is one that I've heard about, and I got it because I was trying to find sorry, I'm trying to read in the back description, the author Blackmore, he says they differ from his contemporaries in a lot of ways. Like, they lack the rebelliousness of Charlotte Bronte's, the performing zeal of Charles Dickens, the pomp and pageantry of Sir Walter Scott's, the satire of Thackeray's, and the searching analysis of George Eliot's. And they're highly romantic. Give us a sense of glory of English tradition and their love stories. So I feel like these are the classics that Terry would like, I think. But like I said, I know that she's very particular and she has to read it herself. I do kind of like the smell and the look when a book is a lot older. I'm just also worried it's going to fall apart on me if I'm not careful. Because I am one of those people who will do, where we'll do like this when I'm reading. But I love the typography. I love this typography. I don't know if I have that. I don't know which one on my computer is that, but I do love that typography. Especially, I'm obsessed with writing the letter L and that cursive kind of handwriting. But anyway, though, I bought this one because it was the one that looked the most, sounds the most interesting that I've heard about. So yeah, so that is my reading right now, and I do need to get back into reading Count of Monte Cristo and American Gods. Those, I think they're the oldest books on my shelf, so I need to read those, continue reading with those. And when it happens, I will definitely, when I finally finish Count of Monte Cristo, I'll have a mixture of sense of, yes, I'm finally done, and like, oh, I'm done. What do I do in my life now? Like, it's so weird when I've been with something with a character, whether they're good or bad, whether they're a good guy or bad guy, or with a book. I always get this weird feeling in my gut that's like, that's why books like that, where it's like, I can't believe I'm done. So what do I do now? while, at the same time, I'm like, oh my god, I'm finally done. They're finally gone. This character's finally gone. I'm finally done with this book. But then at the same time, it's like, what do I do in my life now? But, I've been with it for so long. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm done. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense, but anyway, so if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you are enjoying your reading. I hope you are staying safe and take care of yourself and doing what you can to help with what's going on, all the crappy stuff that we're dealing with. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye!